Hey everybody, let me just get situated here. I know some of you who are here and some of you I'm meeting for the first time tonight. So I'll just take a moment to introduce myself. My name's Becca and I'm one of the grief counselors here. I'm going to be talking with all of you about the 12 tips of holiday grief tonight. And I just want to piggyback off of something that Keely said in the beginning. I just want to really warmly welcome all of you here. And we're really, really glad that you made it. I know it's evening time now, so you might have had a long day at work or a busy day, or maybe just had a day. But no matter where you were earlier, you're here now, and we're really glad that we're together. I will tell you these tips are put together kind of twofold with two groups of people in mind. First and foremost are our grievers, right? Our people who have had loss and are seeking support. These tips are for you. We also have in mind when we came up with these tips, there are some folks that reach out to learn more about grief so that they can feel better equipped to support people in their lives who are grieving. So no matter who you are or what specifically brings you here tonight, I hope that you can tell and feel that these tips were made with you in mind, and I hope that they are helpful. Um, so without further ado, tip number one, everyone grieves in their own unique way. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. This is important to keep in mind, not just at the holidays, but all the time. As human beings, we can be prone to comparison, we can be prone to judgment, and sometimes within that, we can be prone to things like criticism or shame. Um, their grief is so unique. I think I said it earlier today. It's like our thumbprint, right? Our fingerprints are so unique to us, and our grief will be too. No one will have the same losses that you've had under the same circumstances and feel and think the same way about those things. So the things that I need to do to carry my grief and cope with my grief, they're going to be different from what Keely needs to do or Debbie needs to do. And we're all right because we're doing what's right for us. So please keep that in mind. Um, I know that it can be human nature, but if you can avoid the urge to judge or compare, that is such a gift that you can give to yourself and to other people who are grieving around you too, right? They're just making space for everyone and each of our grief experiences to be welcomed here. Tip number two. So we know that even when we're not grieving, holidays can be a lot. They can be stressful, they can be busy, they can be overwhelming. Sometimes it can bring up conflict, getting together with family. It goes on and on. So we know ahead of time that holidays can be a lot, and typically they become more after we've had a loss. So tip number two is really just taking a moment to acknowledge that, right? To acknowledge that the holidays can be hard. And if you are here as a person who's grieving tonight, this holiday season is different because you are grieving and it's not going to feel the same as it has in holidays past or in years past. Um, Another kind of human trait is we have this desire, this urge, this protective instinct to avoid things that hurt, right? So think about physical pain. If um, you get close to a flame, you rip your hand away. That's your protective measure. We can have similar instincts when it comes to emotional pain. So we can sometimes have this instinct and this urge or even the desire, I want to feel better. So let me look at these things that I think are going to help me feel better. And then we end up avoiding the things that hurt or the things that don't feel good to feel. Please try not to do that this holiday season. Please try not to avoid your grief entirely. Yes, make room for joy. Yes, make room for celebration when you can. But please make sure you make room for your grief to be a part of your holidays too. Tip number three, spend time considering what you want to do or how you want to feel on the day itself before the day arrives. This includes considering whether to keep old traditions or add new ones. So, what that means is, we all kind of have our traditions, right? What we do every year for Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or Christmas. Um, this year, it's okay if those things need to change or you want them to change. Um, spend some time thinking about that. And we're going to do that a little bit later tonight. Debbie's going to walk us through one of our hands-on workshops where we come up with a holiday plan. I would also encourage you to keep in mind when you are planning, make room for things to change, right? You might wake up on the day of, and you've put this plan together, and then you think, oh gosh, I really don't want to do that, or I don't have the energy to do that. Or you think, man, it would have been really nice to do such and such. So just give yourself room for your mind to change, for your feelings to change, for your needs to change. And it's a really good idea to start thinking ahead of time, what that plan might look like for you. Number four, finding a way to honor or include your loved one throughout the holiday season. We know here, and if you are not new to our counseling or our groups, you might have heard us talk before about continuing bonds or the idea of how healthy, I mean, it's not an idea, it's proven. The theory, the research behind the theory, continuing bonds, staying connected to your person or people or whomever, pet, loved one who's died. It is so healthy to stay connected to them. Um, we know, right? Each of you here knows that when someone you care for dies, your love doesn't die when they die, right? That love continues. And throughout this holiday season, it can be a comfort to find ways to connect into that love and to feel like we are, in turn, connecting with our person or our loved one. There are so many ways that we can honor our special people. Some of them are on the list, but by no means is this an exhaustive list. We could spend a whole hour and a half talking about, continuing the bond, but some ideas to think about tonight: lighting a candle in their memory, buying and displaying an ornament that reminds you of them, or maybe if your family had a tradition of, buying ornaments every year, that could be something that you decide to continue. Maybe setting a place for them at your table or making their favorite meal. Some folks find comfort in making a donation in their honor. Um, and of course, we can reminisce through old photos or videos. I just want to make a point here too to say there are some bonds that don't feel very safe or comfortable to continue. So please acknowledge that and only do what feels right for you. And some of the things that are on this list or other ideas of staying connected, depending on you and your grief and where you're at in that moment, really, some of these things can be pretty triggering for your grief, right? It can bring a big wave of grief with it. So keep those things in mind. At the end of the day, we do really encourage you to find a way to feel connected and stay connected with your person, but always bringing in those little notes of doing what's best for you. Speaking of doing what's best for you, tip number 5 is know your warning signs and take breaks. So, an idea for you this holiday season is to consider yourself the mindful observer of your thoughts and your feelings, or your thoughts and your emotions this holiday season. Really keeping an eye out to see where's my mind keep going, or what keeps coming up within my body, or what feelings keep coming up, or emotions keep coming up. Um, while we're being curious about what we're thinking and feeling, and while we're kind of tapping into that connection with ourself, um, with that also comes looking out for our warning signs. These are usually, we can feel them in our body, but they're warning us that we're becoming overwhelmed or stressed or irritable or anxious. Something is off, and these are signs that say, hey, I need to step away. I need to either engage in self-care or practice some of my coping skills, maybe reach out for help. Um, But keeping in mind, this is something that takes effort, right? And I do acknowledge when we're grieving, sometimes it feels like we just don't have the energy to do something new, let alone just do the things that are known to us. This is something that you can practice anytime, right? Throughout your day, anytime you can practice it. It does take effort. But even if, during Keely's talk tonight, finding one breath, one mindful breath, can be the same thing here, right? Taking one moment to maybe put your hand on your heart and just wonder, what am I feeling right now? And does my body feel okay? Do I feel tense? Do I feel like my stomach is in knots? Just kind of doing a quick scan shouldn't take up too much time out of your day. Tip 6, set realistic expectations for yourself. We are pretty prone to holding ourselves to really high expectations. Some of us might not really hold ourselves to realistic expectations at all. Um, Whoever you are, if that speaks to you, then I'm talking to you. But I'm really talking to all of you, even if you feel like throughout the year you do a pretty good job of having realistic expectations. Um, Keep that in mind this holiday season, especially with, I think there can be a real pressure to feel a certain way at the holidays. Right? I think we see in TV and movies and we read in books that people are so happy at the holidays and we're with our family and everyone's getting along and it's this beautiful, wonderful, magical time. And we know, right, living in the real world that that is certainly not always the case. And maybe if this is a year where you've had someone that you care for die, maybe you shouldn't expect yourself to feel certain things that you just, aren't authentically feeling. Maybe you shouldn't expect yourself to have endless amounts of energy to do all of the holiday things. Um, I encourage you to take a look at, what are you expecting of yourself? What do you think that you should be thinking or feeling or doing? And then from there, maybe if there's a particularly supportive person in your life, if not, or even if so, maybe reaching out to a therapist to work through some of those things could be a good idea. Tip 7, prioritizing self-care. So important that we had our first portion of our workshop all about self-care tonight. It really is. It is so important to make sure that we're caring for ourselves and pouring into ourselves and really, looking at the different domains like Keely talked about tonight. I think sometimes when people talk about self-care, we think about bubble baths and just kind of tuning out. And that's certainly, it can be a part of self-care, but it's so much more than that, right? Looking at our body, heart, mind, and spirit or soul. And sometimes self-care is doing the hard stuff, right? And it's not always pretty and relaxing. One idea for this, the idea of practicing self-care this holiday season, setting boundaries is caring for yourself, right? So for example, with setting boundaries, and we'll talk about that a little bit next for number 8, but having the ability to maybe change up what you do at the holidays. And maybe before you went for a whole gathering, and maybe this year you say, I'm going to go for dinner, but I'm going to leave before dessert. Whatever your boundaries are, I'm just going to roll this into number 8, setting, expressing, and maintaining your boundaries. Whatever you decide to do for yourself this holiday season is valid, and you have permission to figure out what it is that you need and to communicate that to other people. Um, if you are here and you are part of a family system and there's been a loss within your family, it is quite common for there to be conflict coming up around the holidays, or even just in general, conflict within families when we're grieving is common. This holiday season specifically, if if you're noticing that maybe what you want to do this holiday season is different from someone else in your family and you're wondering, what do we do? How do we navigate this? My best piece of advice for you to take away tonight would be aiming for a general respect of the differences that we have instead of trying to have a consensus that we reach, right? Um, so a really kind of clear example of that, I think it's clear. Let's say this year is our first Thanksgiving without mom, and mom made apple pie every year for Thanksgiving. And she's my mom, and I want to make her apple pie, and I want to honor that way. And it's really important for me that we have mom's apple pie for Thanksgiving. And my brother is appalled at the idea of having mom's apple pie. It seems so absurd to him that I would need that or want that for myself. And we have two very opposing sides of view on this. We don't have to either decide that we're going to eat the pie together, we're going to make it and eat it together, or no one gets pie. We can respect that I need something different, and that's good. That's good. And so maybe I serve the pie after my brother leaves, or maybe we have an agreement that says, "Hey, I'm still going to do the pie thing," and maybe we can work out where you don't have to leave, but maybe you step aside, go play with the kids in the basement or go take the dog for a walk. Um, Whatever it is that your family comes up with, again, the main idea here is just trying to respect each other's differences, trying to find ways that we can honor everyone's needs without someone having to give up what it is that they need or want. Tip number 9 is to surround yourself with people who support you. Um, This is huge. So the research that they're doing is showing that access to quality support is one of the biggest predictors of how we will be able to cope with our grief long term. It's not saying that quantity is more important. It's saying quality. Quality support is so important if we want to find ways to find healing and to incorporate this grief into the rest of us. Support is one of the biggest factors that is going to be able to help us do that. We are not meant to grieve in isolation. We need support. And I hope each of you here tonight, I hope that you have good support. But realistically, I know, not everyone is able to hold space and give us the support that we need. So if you find holes or gaps in your support system, I hope you will feel comfortable reaching out to us and join a group or reach out to us for counseling. We would love to be a part of your support system. And that one kind of rolls into step number 10 or tip number 10. If you need help, ask for it. It might seem, again, common sense, but I think it's really hard for us to ask for help. It's hard for me to ask for help, and I know I'm not alone in that. And there's, different reasons for that. Sometimes it's just uncomfortable. Sometimes I can't even figure out what it is that I need or want. So how am I supposed to communicate that to someone else? So I get it. I know it's easier said than done. Um, One idea when it comes to asking for help is looking at who's already a part of your life. And sometimes people kind of naturally fall into categories of where their strengths lie when it comes to offering support. Some people might be really good at listening and holding space for you, and then they are not so good at the hands-on stuff, right? And some people might be really thoughtful and think ahead of time and drop off little gifts or food or, meals for you or organize a meal train or help with a GoFundMe or, they do something more tangible, hands-on. But they might not be very good listeners. So that's okay. That's normal. None of us are going to be able to, no one person is going to be able to meet your needs or your wants when it comes to how you are supported. So taking a look at who's in your life, are there people that naturally fall into that listener category? Are there people that are more doers and putting them in that category? Having that determination or those defining characteristics can help, to look at and say, okay, I do need help with holiday shopping, and Becca's a good listener, but she's not a good shopper. So maybe maybe I'll ask Keely for help with that. Um, the other point here is, don't assume that other people know what you're thinking or feeling, even if to you it feels so obvious. How could people not know that I am struggling, or I feel like I'm drowning with responsibilities? Please do not make the mistake of assuming that other people know. Um, we just don't, right? We're not ever able to read someone else's mind or anticipate their every need. And if we kind of come from a framework that says other people should be able to see what I need or what I want, that can be a recipe for us getting our feelings hurt, right? When I think Keely should know, it's clear, and then she misses an opportunity for support, I'm hurt and she has no idea what's going on, right? So a different way of going about it is talking to Keely and saying, "Hey, this is something that I really need some help with. Do you feel able to do that?" Number 11. So this is a very specific tip. It comes from Megan Devine. She is a therapist and author. Her book is called "It's Okay That You're Not Okay." It's my number one book that I refer to my clients who are looking for a book on grief. So Megan talks about sometimes during the holiday season, we are going to events that we're not really excited about, or maybe we're kind of dreading. So know that you have permission to say no. You don't have to accept every invitation. Like we talked about earlier, maybe you have a different boundary this year that says, I will go, but I will leave early. Um, all of those things, kept in mind. If you are ultimately deciding to go somewhere that you're not feeling super comfortable or excited about, Megan talks about bringing an object that reminds you of your life outside of this event, bringing that object with you to the event and using it as an opportunity to ground you, and to remind you that this uncomfortable situation will end. So I gave this example in the afternoon group. My necklace has a really special meaning for me, but it's small, right? And if I'm here and I kind of hold my necklace or rub it, I'm not really calling attention to myself, but it can be a moment for me to remind myself that this will end and I can do this and I am here, or whatever, affirmation or comfort that I need to help get through that hard event. So maybe think about what object you could bring. Maybe it's a piece of jewelry. Maybe it's something from outside. Maybe it's an Altoids box, which might seem random, but it will make sense. Debbie's going to talk with us about an Altoids box meditation later. So maybe you bring your Altoids box with you. And then last, tip 12, please listen to this one. I know I've been talking for a while and I hope you haven't fallen asleep. Number 12, please be gentle with yourself this holiday season. This is hard. This is so, so hard. And I know I don't have to tell you this. Navigating this world without our person or our people, our loved one, without their physical presence is, I think, one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing we will ever do. And doing that at the holiday season, it's its own special blend of grief and loss and hardship. So please know that if this holiday season you are dreading the holidays, you are not looking forward to it, you wish they would just pass by, um, that's valid. It doesn't mean that every holiday is going to feel like this. Maybe this year is for surviving, and then maybe in holidays in the future you might feel differently. But please, whatever you do, please be gentle with yourself. I'm going to turn it over to my coworker Jay, and she's going to talk with you about caring for children who are grieving the holidays.